Now, this is a longer interview to get to the first thought. It's relatively quick that I get to it with Prask. He's hiring an ESG consultant to help them with a part of his business. And the first part is, actually, I'm trying to raise some money. I could have stopped there, but actually, over a course of about 12 minutes, we dig in deep to say, what was the real first thought? Was it, I can't raise money unless I solve this? Or was it, now I'm aware of a problem, I need to fix it for my own internal reasons?
Can you remember taking me back from that point? When was it that you first had a thought of, hey, I might need some help to do this, or whatever it was in your mind, that little voice in the back of your head saying things aren't quite as I want them to be, so maybe I need something else?
It was in the spring of that year, March or April, I can't remember, but it was around that sort of time. I was speaking to a venture capitalist fund, and they were very sort of critical, I suppose, of the fact that a lot of our revenues were coming from selling it's not a majority at all, but a not insignificant magnitude of revenue was coming from selling consumer hardware, and the sort of the kind of environmental implication of this, and the fact that we weren't looking to, we hadn't sort of offered anything to sort of mitigate the damage that we were doing by sort of basically trying to push thousands of devices, which a lot of the customers that we have, it's not their primary device, but we were really sort of pushing them to have a separate device.
Okay, that's interesting. So you say it's not like most of your revenues, but it sounds like it's a reasonable chunk of them. Is it sort of 10%, 40%?
It's probably not even that, but I think it's a large number of phones.
It's not much about you're making this big bucket load of money and polluting the planet. It's more you're like, forget the money. You've got thousands of devices that you're putting out there, and you haven't got a story to tell. Is that right?
Yeah, because the profit margin is quite slim on those things, because again, they were new devices. So I think that the question being that we had, and it's true, we hadn't sort of given it any consideration. It was sort of easy come, easy go from our perspective. We were very happy to sort of shill this sort of these new pieces of hardware.
And I suppose on that, so we're there March, April 22, trying to raise money. Well, are you trying to raise money from the venture capital fund, or is this just like business as usual for you? You always meet these people and.
Oh no, we were trying to raise at that point in time.
Okay, so you're speaking to them specifically about getting an investment.
Yes.
Is it a big investment? Is it like?
It was quite sizable. It was probably about £5 or £6 million.
Okay.
But it would have equated to. They wouldn't have put all of that in. I think the company, or the fund that we were speaking to, I think they were going to put in about 1.5 or 2. But they were going to. The reason we were talking to them was because we were looking for them to be a lead investor, so they would put the money in, and then we'd sort of build around their investment.
Okay, and so you said they're critical that you're making money from this. Are they critical that you're doing it in the first place, or are they critical that you don't have, like, why do they care? They're just trying to make more money, aren't
they? They're quite a sort of a ESG focused fund.
Okay.
So,
did you approach that or not?
Sorry?
Did you know that when you approached them, or?
Yes, definitely. And it's something that we sort of want to do something about, but we just hadn't really considered the extent that they would care about sort of these third-party devices. Okay, because I suppose at the time we didn't think, because we don't produce those. We do sell them and sort of we're pushing them, but I suppose because we don't produce them ourselves and it's third-party tech, we didn't really consider that it'd be that impactful.
Yeah, we're not the producers, so maybe they're going to do something about it, and we can wash our hands of it. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yeah, a little bit. It probably wasn't that sort of quicker conversation, but that's the crux of it. I think we were really focused on things that we were doing, even to the extent of, we were looking quite closely at sort of, servers that we run, services that we use in that sense. But because of how within the business the hardware is structured, because there's a few pieces of hardware that we sell. One is these sort of smartphones for our merchants to use. We also sell a specific type of printer, and we also do sell card readers because some merchants prefer to use those. But we don't produce any of that, so it's sort of almost psychologically sort of sits outside of the business. It's very much an afterthought. These are things that even when we're building the business, we consider ourselves a software business. That's our sort of big focus, and that's what we do. We haven't sort of got any hardware people within the business, so it's very much like an afterthought. In the same way that, trying to think of an example, we sort of give away stickers sometimes, so as merchants put them up in their, on the sort of in their windows, on their doors. It's like a we accept MasterCard, Amex, Visa type thing. It's it's the same. That's how we were thinking of it. It wasn't core to our business.
Okay, that makes sense. But at the same time, if I'm hearing you right, you seem to be saying to me that this isn't, we don't care about the environment. Actually, we do care, but we just, maybe we haven't seen it. Like, we're not seeing our impact from that. We think that we're running our tight ship, keeping a hand on our servers and the software, and that hopefully our suppliers are doing the same. Is that sort of where I'm hearing it?
Pretty much, yeah. Because we don't have any control over sort of the with a phone, for example. Think about like lithium batteries, things like that. We don't have any control over that at all. It's literally something that we're buying in and selling on. We don't have any control in the manufacturing process, and because we're dealing with companies like Apple, which are absolute giants, that there is no option to sort of steer anything or have any influence. So we just didn't consider it part of our business, I suppose.
Got it. Okay, but actually, you mentioned the B Corp side of things. Is that a conversation that's happening around this time, or is that something that had already been
prior to that? It was about a year before that. The main reason for that was, as a board, we wanted to, and that was more about governance rather than any sort of kind of ecological standpoint. It was more about we wanted the board to be more sort of inclusive and more representative of the society that we live in. We wanted to represent. It was more about trying to represent the voice of the customer as well within the business.
I guess the angle I'm trying to take on this is, it seems like you're the founder of this. You're working with your team. It's important to you to be socially responsible, and it's just that your social responsibility was looking more at the diversity side of things, the inclusion, making sure we have a representative team for our customers and things like that. And you hadn't necessarily considered that you had an environmental impact. Is that
absolutely? And again, I think because we're a software business, I think there was a sort of a bit of a blinkered approach, and I suppose we considered. I'm just trying to think back to sort of thought processes and standpoints back then. I think we probably just assumed that we make this sort of intangible stuff. It's not. It's it's not the same as if we were sort of building out diesel cars or something. It felt very sort of separated from that, which I suppose was just like a sort of a lack of education on our part. We just didn't really, we weren't particularly aware.
And so venture capital funds, you're going to them, you want them to be the lead investor in a 5-6 million round to put in about 20-25% of it. And they start that, you say they're critical. Like, help me shoot that scene. You sat there getting hammered on you're destroying the environment, or are they just saying, hey, you haven't got a very good story on this? Like, what's the energy like?
I think they always tend to be critical in the beginning. The ones that end up sort of getting on board obviously sort of warm up, but they're hypercritical in my experience in the beginning. And I think it's part of it is they want to know that you've thought about things. And they'll ask tough questions, sometimes because they know the answer. They might know that you don't have a solution, but they want to know that you've considered it. I think that's where that's the thought process. So it was just a sort of a regular grilling. But I think because that fund is ESG focused, they were, and we were talking about the governance of the business, but we weren't talking about the sort of the sustainability, or rather the sort of more the impact, the secondary impact the business was having.
And have they turned around and said, we're not going to invest unless you have a story about this? Or so I'm trying to get back to that first thought. Is it you sat there going, oh crap, I've been found out and I need an answer, or is it more?
Not quite. They didn't say that. I think that would have been the case. I don't think they would have invested if we hadn't have sort of decided to do anything about it. In the end, we sort of decided not to work with them for sort of just separate reasons, more about their ability to sort of follow on and help us in the sort of the subsequent round of funding. And that's what we were looking for, somebody that would work with us quite closely. But it wasn't really sort of about sort of a panic that we've been found out. I think it was more for dawning realization that this is something that we need to sort of take more ownership of, because it's we're actively encouraging. I think the penny dropped when, I suppose it was the fact that we're actively encouraging a very large number of businesses, and we're hoping for this to become an even larger number of businesses over time. We're encouraging them to buy devices that they otherwise wouldn't need or want. So that's quite, there has to be some sort of, so we're pushing this sort of these consumer electronics onto these businesses, and that we need to take some sort of responsibility for that and see what can we do to sort of mitigate that. Not to sort of change the business completely. I mean, we did in the end, but just to try and sort of remove, just putting more and more, or sort of encouraging the sort of the purchase of more and more of this sort of what is ultimately quite disposable hardware.
Yeah, and I guess so you're sort of sad there saying, are we pushing these goods on businesses that they don't need almost? And what are we going to do about it? I guess so you're asked this question and it's a dawning realization, I think you said.
Yeah.
So like, do you feel bad about this? You suddenly thought, oh, like I've missed something? Is it more internal, I guess, that you feel that you've got to go and solve a problem you've created, or external, that if I don't solve this, I won't get the money I need to keep growing the business?
It was both. Well, I don't think I thought that we wouldn't be able to raise the money, because sadly there's a lot of investors who just don't care about this sort of thing at all. So it wasn't sort of that kind of a sense of it. I have a 9-year-old son so at the time who'd have been 7. I think you sort of think about things differently when you have kids. Or certainly I did. I think I sort of, you want to use, or I think I became more conscious about doing my best to sort of, create and cultivate an environment, or do my bit so that he has a sort of a nice place to live in as he's growing up. Okay. So maybe more, I mean, I wouldn't say I was socially irresponsible before that, but I feel a greater sense of social responsibility having had a child. Okay. So maybe that's part of it. But yeah, I think we could have quite easily have just not done anything about this and still gone ahead and raised the money. It was more a sense of what we wanted to do and felt responsibility to do.
So there you have it, right at the end. He could have raised the money. He could have gone off to a less ethical funding source and just taken their cash and continued polluting the planet. But because he had a son, he didn't want to do that. Now, how would I use this? Well, first and foremost, we would look and say, well, who's raising money? Who is largely a software business, maybe has some part of their business that is polluting or is causing damage to the environment? And which of these businesses are maybe looking to get B Corp certified, because you mentioned that earlier. Which of these are kind of ethical businesses? Who has something on their website where they stand for values that when they try and raise money and they're asked questions they can't answer, it triggers the light bulb internally? Not to say, I've got to fix this so we can get money, but I've got to fix this because I've suddenly realized my values are out of kilter. And if I don't solve this, I'm going to create a worse world for my son than I inherited from my father. Cheers.